You've made your way to the voice of college football, Mark Rogers TV, talking up the SEC and the Georgia Bulldogs just after we completed Alabama and before that Miami. We've got Savannah Lee Richardson on the line for a little live stream. So join us on the chat on YouTube and ask your comments and questions. And Savannah joins us, of course, just 5 days before what's kind of the unofficial kickoff of the season in college football, and especially the SEC season, because when it comes to SEC media days or football media days anywhere in the Power Five, the SEC does it up bigger and better than everybody else. So, Savannah, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. I've just been ready for football season to start. We have 52 days. And then, this will be my first SEC media days as a reporter, a journalist. And so I'm probably the most excited SEC beat writer out of all of the other teams, because I watched the SEC media days. It's like a religion to me. I mean, every single year we record all 4 days or however many, 3 or 4 days. It used to be 3. Now I think it's like 4, and would sit just there and watch it over and over again. So it's kind of like a bucket list check off for me, but I've been busy this summer. I got another kind of like an internship besides Bulldog Illustrated in Atlanta, working with a radio, intercom radio. So I've been kept busy having to catch up with my UGA stuff, but I'm on top of it for the most part.
Of course you're on top of it.
Yes. All right. I write every day, and we check on recruits every day, and we check on Jake Fromm to make sure he has had no more accidents. And, we see offensive linemen dancing on Twitter and having a big time, and the football players just seem to be enjoying their summer, especially the last couple of weeks ago. We went to Camp Sunshine, and that's probably one of my favorite things that we do with the football team.
So I heard about the Jake Fromm injury on the lake. That was a bit of a freak accident. And then you're telling me that offensive linemen are dancing on Twitter, which that doesn't seem like such a big deal. Maybe I've got to check the dance out.
Yeah, it's called a Kiki dance. It's from Drake, one of Drake's new songs. Like, athletes and other people have made up this dance that they dance to one of the parts of the songs, and Andrew Thomas did it and got filmed by some publication that was in town doing some other things, and happened to get thrown up on Twitter this morning, and I saw it and thought it was funny because Andrew Thomas is like really focused and never really showed much emotion whenever we interview him and stuff. So it was fun to see him have like a lighter side. And in the video, you can see his roommate, Trey Blunt, like laying in the floor, just dying laughing, and from just him dancing. So, but then Jake Fromm, he goes on the lake every weekend, and it seems like he's either getting a fish hook stuck in his leg or breaking his non-throwing hand, causing the Georgia fans to go up and roar.
All right. I'm not up on Drake. My kids love Drake. Well, they're actually, one loves Drake. The other one's a little bit more critical of Drake. So they've loved certain Drake albums and other drops that they didn't quite like. And it all sounds the same to me. But somebody on the live chat would like me to try out the dance. So maybe I'll check that out, and then I'll try it in front of the mirror, and then I'll probably decide that I look like a moron. So we won't try that. So we got Savannah Lee Richardson on the line to talk Georgia football. And yeah, we understand that there's not a whole lot to talk about right now, but you can always make up stuff to talk about with college football. And in 5 days, we're going to have not football to talk about, but we're at least going to have people talking about football that we can talk about what they talked about in talking about football. And so SEC football media days, we've got J.R. Reed coming to the festivities in Hoover, Alabama, Terry Godwin and Jonathan Ledbetter. What do you think of those
Atlanta this year, Mark?
I'm sorry, what's that?
SEC media days is in Atlanta this year.
Oh, Atlanta. Okay.
Yep.
I was just going off habit.
I know. I'm so used to it being in Alabama as well that it's weird being able to say, oh, all I have to do is drive 45 minutes to Atlanta to be able to go, which is one of the reasons why Bulldog Illustrated is doing it. Well, one, because, driving to Alabama, it's not always the most entertaining, especially just talking to other media members and stuff. But Greg decided to go to it this year, and I'm super excited because, like I said, it's my first one. But, yeah, I think the three that are coming for Georgia they represent the brand very well. They're all very well spoken. They all have great personalities when it comes to talking to the media, and I'm sure we'll get some good one-liners from Terry Godwin. He's always cooking up something. He's actually like a really good chef. He's one of the players that will cook like omelets and stuff like that in their nutrition area. He did something last year with the student newspaper, and it was really cool because you would think as a football player he wouldn't be that into cooking, but he is. So I'm looking to see if he's got any cool new cooking stories maybe. And then Jonathan Ledbetter, definitely looking for him to be that one of the new leaders on the defense after losing Lorenzo Carter and Davin and Roquan and them. So it'd be fun to see where they're at mentally in the middle of the summer, of course, but we are right around the corner from fall camp, and I'm sure all of them are loving summer workouts and getting ready to get started again.
So, Savannah, when we're in the middle of football season, I don't want to hear about any of that stuff. I could care less about people's cooking habits or what movies they like or anything like that.
I know.
But I hang on just a second. I've got to admit it, at this point of the season or non-season, off-season, when there's nothing going on, they have yet to go to fall camp. There's not a whole lot to talk about in regards to football I would love to hear real football talk, but we're not going to get real football talk because we get that everybody's got a chance and we're working hard and we've got our eyes on the prize and all that kind of stuff, the cliched stuff. So I'm all for listening to the really oddball stories about what they did for their summer break or what stupid hobbies they like or whatever they like. This is the time to do it for me. Once we start playing the football games, then I don't want to hear about anything else. But right now, yeah, give me the cooking lesson. Give me the gourmet recipes. That's fine.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's the off season. You can't make it all. I mean, for them, I guess it's a nice break. But once football season starts, for sure, they don't need to be hearing about cooking. Just play football, catch touchdown passes, and score touchdowns, so Georgia can be right back where they were and get revenge on Alabama.
Yeah, we've got a long time to talk about that. We'll get there. We'll get there. So right now, we've got a few questions that have come in. Well, we've got a ton of questions and comments that have come in on the live chat. But before the live chat, in publicizing the conversation with Savannah this afternoon on Twitter, we received a couple questions prior to the live chat here. One would have to do with one DeAndre Swift to a certain extent, because I've rated the guy the best running back in the SEC. And all sorts of people jumped on me looking at his statistics versus other players' statistics from last season. I'm not rating who were the best running backs in the SEC in 2017. I can do that too, but I'm projecting ahead. There's no Nick Chubb. There's no Sony Michel on the roster. DeAndre Swift is going to get the bulk of the carries. So I'm projecting. This is what you do when you make a selection before the season on who the best will be. You're not talking about who were the best. So that's my thought, and I rated him as high as number 4 in the country at running back. We did have, I'm sorry I don't have the exact Twitter reference, but I will give them their proper mention after the question is answered, that asked us about the young running back, Holyfield, jumping into the mix and what kind of an impact he's going to have.
Well, the last time you and I talked, I seem to have a very, very strong opinion about Holyfield, and I still have that strong opinion. I think there's just a lot more talented running backs in front of him that will see the field a lot more. I think what he did last year, being in that guy that came into the late in the third quarter and fourth quarter to give the first and second string guys a break, is what he'll do. Goal line situations, he's so big and stocky, will be a great option for him as well, because Georgia doesn't necessarily have a fullback anymore because Christian Payne graduated last year. So I think there's an option for him to be able to get some more playing time. However, what role will he play? I still think he'll keep the role that he had. He told us, like, during the spring, he wants to prove to everybody that he can do it. Well, in G-Day, he really didn't. Granted, Georgia didn't really try to run the ball a whole lot, but he did struggle some against Georgia's front seven, which will probably be the best front seven in the SEC East, and probably the second best, maybe third best, if I'm being nice about Auburn. But if he can't get anything going on Georgia, I don't know how confident I would be with him doing anything against Auburn or Alabama or even Kentucky. Until he proves to me that he can handle taking a majority amounts of the snaps, then I'm not really going to say, oh, he's so great and everything. He's very talented. Would probably start anywhere else if he played anywhere else. I just think that Georgia is so locked and loaded and they have so many talented running backs that he just kind of falls into the mixture instead of being that premier back. I think, like you said, Swift, I like the fact that you named him the most number one running back, because I've been reading the preview magazines and stuff, and I just didn't think that he got a lot of credit, because I've started rewatching last season as like a thing that I do, getting it ready for SEC Media Days. I start rewatching the games, and he just had explosive plays all throughout the entire season. So that's what I'm excited for, is to see those explosive plays more and more often. But Holyfield, he's a third and fourth quarter kind of guy. And until he proves to me anything else, that's where I'll keep him.
Okay, we've got Savannah Lee Richardson on the line from Bulldog Illustrated, breaking down Georgia football for us on a live stream here on YouTube. We also have struck up a bit of a simulcast on Facebook, which doesn't have the most flattering look at me right now, but we'll clean up the Facebook Live portion of this at another date. So whoever's joining on Facebook, if you want the real transmission of the show right here, just go to YouTube, look up Mark Rogers TV, or make it easy on yourself and just look up MarkRogersTV.com, and you can join the live chat and all these fine folks that trash talk on college football each and every night with me. All right, Savannah, you also received a question on Bulldog Illustrated. If you could share that one with us and give us your insight into that one.
One of our commenters, his name is MMCS Dog. Not really sure what his actual name is, but that's what we call him on our board. He asked me and everybody else on the thread, which new addition to our team, looking at the new arrivals such as the freshmen and maybe some of the transfers that are coming in, who would have the most impact this season on offense and defense, excluding the quarterbacks? I thought this was a really good question, because you could go so many different ways. For the offensive side of things, I'm really looking forward to Matt Landers or Tommy Bush to really step up and be that big target for Jake Fromm. Another name on the offense that I'm excited to see what he does is Luke Ford. He's one of the tight ends that that Georgia brought in for the 2018 class, and he's just massive. Seeing pictures of him at Camp Sunshine, and he just looks so in shape and so just ready to play. So I'm excited to see what he does. Jamari Sawyer on the offensive line, he's probably one of the most talked about on our boards anyway, just because of his sheer size. I think Cade Mays also could have some kind of impact. There's so many different names I could throw out on the offense that it's kind of scary to think that Georgia has this many people and this much talent coming in when everybody's like, oh, well, they're losing everybody. Well, we're only losing one on the offensive. We only lost one on the offensive line. And I know switching over Andrew Thomas to the left side and stuff will probably be a challenge, but Georgia's locked and loaded, and there's so much talent that it's kind of hard to even pick one or two guys. But as for the defense, this is where I'm really excited, because I saw Adam Anderson up close and personal at Camp Sunshine, and he looks like Lorenzo Carter made over. Just a big, tall, lanky, but still real stocky, and I'm so excited to see him put some pads on and hit somebody. Another name is Monty Rice. Granted, he's not a brand new addition, but he didn't play as much because he was behind Roquan at that linebacker position. He's one that I'm really going to keep my eye out for. And then who else? I'm trying to think here. Oh, well, Wyatt on the defensive line. I'm excited to see what he does. He did a year in JUCO. The defensive line is going to be an area that Georgia really needs to focus on because they lost Trent Thompson and John Atkins. And then I like Channing Tindall as well. He's a kid from South Carolina, plays linebacker. And then Tyson Campbell. That's who I was trying to – I've had his name on my head all day long knowing that I was going to answer this question. He is so fast and so quick, but what gets him the most is his intelligence when it comes to reading routes and being able to read the ball and read the defense or read the offense more, not the defense. But he's just really smart to be as young as he is. So, I mean, there's a few names thrown out there. So I'm excited. Georgia's just got – like I said, I've probably said this like 3 or 4 times every time we talk, but on the sidelines being told that this is probably the least talented team we'll see at Georgia in the next 5 to 7 years this past season, it's starting to really kind of like sink in, because looking at the players, trying to like, analyze them already, it's just kind of like, wow, there's 4 and 5 star players everywhere.
Yeah, the recruiting's been ridiculous. So the 4 and 5 stars are going to look a lot like Alabama's roster, and already do to a certain extent, just piled up all over the place. And the guys that even get buried on the roster at times have those kind of credentials coming out of high school. Now let's see what we've got on the live chat. We've got the Holyfield talk has ramped up since you had some things to say about him. A lot of people comment that they like to rewatch the games during the offseason as well to get them psyched up for the next season. Ryan asks, does Brenton Cox play outside linebacker or defensive end?
He's probably going to end up doing a little bit of both, just to see where he'll fit in better. Most of spring, he stayed with the outside linebackers, working with Dan Lanning, and with that group. That's where they mostly kept him. But he's really big, so it'll be interesting to see. I might like to see him like on the end, where they did with Davin and Lorenzo, sometimes lining them up on the edge and blitzing them to the quarterback and stuff. He's just massive. He's a freak athlete. He's so good. That's another one that I need to add to my who needs to, or might have an impact, is Brenton Cox, because he just improved so much from the first day of spring camp to the end of spring camp that I'm excited to see what a full summer with strength and conditioning does, and then how well he actually picks up the playbook, because he is naturally talented, and we need it on both the D-line and in the linebackers. But maybe to answer the question, I'd probably see him more at the linebacker right now, just to see how much weight they want to add to him before they put him on the D-line, see if he grows anymore.
Clemson alum 98 says, slow down on the Georgia hype. They will not make the playoff again. So I repeat, Clemson alum 98.
Well, so I will say this. I've been reading, Phil Steele and Lindy and Athlon and all them, and I'm one of the few Georgia fans that will give respect to Clemson where respect is due. Clemson is probably going to have the best defensive line in the entire country, and defense wins championships. And so I'm thoroughly expecting Clemson to make it to the college football playoff and probably end up facing Georgia or even Alabama again, either in the semi or in the finals. I think all Clemson has to do is get that offense rolling, and it's going to be hard for any opponent to beat them. So even though he's hating on Georgia, I'm giving Clemson compliments. I give Clemson compliments all the time. The guys on the board give me hell because I respect Clemson as much as I do, and I'm probably one of the few that want to see the home and home and neutral site against Clemson, because I think either way you look at it, it's going to help the other, whoever loses and whoever wins out in the strength of schedule, because both teams have stayed in the top 25 since the playoffs began. Well, for the most part, Georgia stayed in the top 25. Well, I'm just going off last year and how successful Georgia was. It was like with the Notre Dame game. So having a game like Clemson in there, I like, because it gives a strength of schedule, which is what the playoff committee is looking at. But Clemson's going to be fun to watch. That defensive line, that's one area that just blows my mind, to see Clemson have so many talented people. But anyway, back to Georgia football, please.
Okay, you know that if you win the SEC, your strength of schedule doesn't matter.
Well,
it really doesn't matter.
I was talking about with one of my coworkers today at the radio station, and we were talking about what if Georgia and Alabama faced off in the SEC championship, both undefeated, and Georgia got beat. Would they keep Georgia out of the playoff, or would they put Georgia in the playoff? And then that's just like similar to, Alabama had one loss and they put them in. So it'd be kind of like if they didn't put us in, it would, I don't know. There's so much speculation.
Well, it's impossible. Anytime somebody brings up that question, it doesn't make any sense, because it's impossible within a vacuum to answer that question. You have to explain what else is happening in the country. You have to know what's happening in the other 4 conferences to answer that question.
Yeah.
If there are three other conference champions that are undefeated or have a loss, then Georgia's not going to go to the playoff at
Mm.
12-1. But that's probably not going to happen. So there's going to be other conference champions with one loss, and then there's an opportunity for Georgia. Or look at what happened with Auburn last year. Auburn would have made the playoff with two losses. So for anybody who calls me up all the time and writes that says two-loss teams shouldn't be in the college football playoff, well, it would have happened last year, and it's going to happen at some point. I guarantee in the next 5 years that somebody is going to make the playoff with two losses.
Oh,
So
I
it's
think
going to happen at some point.
Oh, well, I think so too, for sure. I mean, it's going to be hard to keep two loss teams, especially when they're playing harder schedules, and then, or even if the SEC has an off year where only one team was really good, or whatever, or the ACC just falls off, or anything like that. I still think that we should expand it more than 4 teams, but I know that's not going to happen anytime soon.
Georgia came within 2 points of losing another game. They would have lost at Notre Dame. Of course, they won the game. I'm not saying that, but they still would have won the East. They still would have most likely won the championship game of the SEC, and they would have been in the playoff with 2 losses. And of course, if Auburn would have won the game, they would have been in with 2 losses. And we only know how close it was in the college football playoff selection committee's eyes of Ohio State versus Alabama. And of course, the Buckeyes lost 2 games. So it's going to happen at some point. It just hasn't worked out at this point. There's only been 4 years.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be exciting to see the next 4 years and to see how the playoff committee continues to make these decisions and how they base the decisions. Because if they're really going off, because so many people say strength of schedule. Well, Alabama has one of the easiest schedules, and then look at Georgia's. I mean, we can honestly say it's a cupcake schedule. There's 2 or 3 games that I would circle that concern me. And it's with the amount of what Georgia's doing, and if Georgia continues what they did last year, then Georgia will be right back where they were. So it's going to be interesting because you're either going to have Power 5 teams that are going to have to eventually eliminate the cupcake games, which in return takes money away from the cupcake schools. But I don't know. I'd rather see 6 teams.
So I appreciate all my Facebook friends joining. They get an interesting, but probably not the most favorable look at me, and not necessarily my guest, except for the times that I lift up the phone to get both perspectives. But we will clean up the Facebook Live at some point. But join the real conversation on YouTube at MarkRogersTV.com. We've got Savannah Lee Richardson on the line from Bulldog Illustrated talking Georgia football. So this may be the last question I ask you, unless somebody comes up with a gem on the live chat in the meantime. And again, we will have Savannah on hopefully sometime next week after Georgia hits the podium at SEC Football Media Day sometime later in the week to talk what Georgia talked about at SEC Media Days between Reed, Godwin, Ledbetter, and Kirby Smart. So Ryan Mell, big Georgia fan, joins us here just about every night, wants to know who you would like to play in the non-conference. Personally, he would like to see Ohio State, Texas, or Miami.
For just who Georgia should face?
Yes.
In the non-conference? Well, okay. I would, without a doubt, say Clemson. Clemson's my first pick for sure because Clemson is not going anywhere anytime soon. They continue to recruit well, they continue to win, and they continue to dominate in the ACC. And they're in the top 5. Usually all season long. Miami would be another good one, I think. Going head-to-head with your old head coach would be fun to see. Would love to play Ohio State just because I've had so many Buckeye fans. Oh, Georgia doesn't want to play the Big Ten and stuff. And I don't know, maybe a Pac-12 school too. I would like to see what Georgia's defense could do against a high-powered throwing offense like USC or UCLA, and maybe even like an Oklahoma State game, because I feel like that would be fun with Mike Gundy. What a character he is. I would love to see that kind of a matchup. I'd take anybody that is being competitive. Penn State too. I'd play against Penn State. Georgia recently played against Penn State, and of course we won. But that would be
you did.
Yeah. Well, we won. I think one time, and then the time before that, I believe Georgia got beat. I'd have to look at the records, but any of the schools that really have a momentum. Ooh, Wisconsin, because Wisconsin is probably if I had to give RBU to a Big Ten school, I would probably give it to Wisconsin, just from like sheer reading this past and watching them last year just dominate in the run game. It was impressive. So I would like to see that, see how well those running backs would do against an SEC defense.
Okay, so the SEC plays an 8-game season in conference, so they've got 4 non-conference games.
Mm-hmm.
Right now for Georgia in 2018, they're always going to play Georgia Tech, so that game's a given. Then they've got Austin P, Middle Tennessee, UMass, nobody to get excited about. In 2019, they get the playback game from Notre Dame after going to South Bend last year, winning by 1 point. Notre Dame comes to Athens in 2019, got the Georgia Tech game, Murray State, Arkansas State. In 2020, Virginia is game number 1 in Atlanta, Louisiana Monroe, the Georgia Tech game, and East Tennessee State. So that's filled out. 2021, there's still a game to look out for. There's still a game to be scheduled in 2021. It's Georgia Tech, UAB, and San Jose State. So Georgia can go out there and get themselves possibly a nice Power 5 game. And then after that, there's a bunch of open spots. Only 2 games scheduled in 2022, 23, 24. There's just the Georgia Tech game. So 3 slots open in 6 years. And then the UCLA home and home series that should be a fun one in 2025 and 26. So starting in 2021, Georgia can start working on that non-conference schedule. But before then, it's locked in.
Yeah. And I think that's because there's been rumors and talks this past week about the Clemson and Georgia home and home and a neutral game. And that might honestly be where they start to stick it in 2021. Because, I mean, they just may be having to finish paperwork and before they can announce it. I would love to see it, just because I think Georgia and Clemson will be the 2 powerhouses the next 5 years. And I've said that the last 4 times that I've been on here with you, and I'll continue to say it until either one of them just start losing and start not performing like they were or recruiting like they were. But I'd love to see that matchup, or Miami. Like I'd honestly, throwing Clemson out of the way, Wisconsin, just because I like how ground and pound they are, and I'd love to see like if Wisconsin could actually compete against an SEC defense.
All right. Well, okay. Wisconsin's played the SEC a lot in bowl games and Citrus Bowl games, Outback Bowl games, and they played Alabama. Didn't fare too well, but they didn't get blown out, but they played them tough for about 3 quarters plus, and then it was like 31-17, something like that. They beat LSU, of course, a couple years ago in Lambeau. They lost to LSU in a really close game when Melvin Gordon got hurt in the second half. So Wisconsin's certainly played a lot of games against the SEC in the last 10 or 15 years. All right, Savannah Lee Richardson joining us from Bulldog Illustrated to talk Georgia football. And of course, it's SEC Football Media Days starting on Monday. Thanks to everyone on Facebook. I know that it's not the cleanest feed or the best shot, but we'll address that later. Just wanted to get something on there for you folks on YouTube. Of course, you're my base, you're my core, you're my rock. So appreciate you being here and following us through the night with Miami, Alabama, and Georgia. Savannah, we appreciate you stopping by as always.
Yeah, I'd love to be here. I love answering all the questions and always talking with you. So I'm excited. We'll have to do after SEC Media Days, because
definitely.
then I'll be
all right, everyone. We'll see you later.